Oh, hi. Are you here for the fun question? Me too. The Fun Question, a show where we explore the strange and powerful ways people engage in a life of fun. I'm your host, Dr. David Thomas, the Professor of Fun, coming to you from my hidden lair and back for another exploration of the playful. My guest today is, well, actually me. I'm here to talk to you about some of my ideas about the fundamentals of fun. You can consider this episode 0, where we talk about what fun is, what it could be, or why it's important. And why does fun seem to be so important to us, but it gets in the way when we think about more serious things in life? Well, these are the things that we're going to explore here, so hang tight and we'll get into it. Now, I'm sure a lot of you, or all of you, or everyone cares about fun. If someone says, hey, do you want to have a good time? You want to have fun? People say yes. I mean, it's kind of self-evident. And fun seems like a pretty throwaway word. It seems like such a throwaway word that we use it to apply to so many human activities, the mind almost boggles. I mean, what do people do for fun if you think about it? They ski, they knit, they box, they cook, they play video games. They take the dog for a walk, they make out, they drink martinis, they go to Disneyland, they backpack, they race cars, they solve Sudoku puzzles, they go fishing, they may even just take a nap and say they're having fun. So what is this thing that we call fun, this ineffable, interesting little word that points in the direction of something really engaging? We work so that we can enjoy leisure time and to have fun. You can ask any human being what they do for fun, and they'll tell you something. Some people have exotic fun things that they do, like climb Mount Everest. Other people do really simple things, like just watch TV or hang out with their friends. And it's all fun. We don't really have any issue with thinking about when someone says, I do this for fun. You don't say that's not fun. You might say it's not fun for me, but you do think it's fun. So I think that fun is such a broad term, and it's applied to so many different things, it might seem impossible to find a single concept of fun that ties it all together. Well, that's where I come in, David Thomas, the Professor of Fun. Now, I would say for most of my professional career, I've been interested in what fun is, what makes things fun, how do you have fun, what does fun even mean? I got my journalism career started as a video game journalist. I used to write about video games for many, many years. And each week I was always trying to answer the same question. I was trying to answer this question of what makes one video game better than the other. Of course, that's why people would read my stories. They wanted to know, is this new video game worth all the money that was being charged? And so I was trying to always answer the question, both mechanically, like what kinds of things could you do in the video game, but also I would say aesthetically, like what makes this game fun? So the whole pursuit of saying what makes one game So the whole pursuit of what makes a game fun, what makes one game better than the other, really came down to this concept of fun. And so as I looked more and more deeply into it, I realized I needed a definition of fun so that I could actually start to break down what makes video game fun. Well, one thing led to the other, and I ended up getting a PhD in architecture studying what makes places fun. I wrote a book with my friend John Sharp called Fun Taste in Games on MIT Press that's about the aesthetics of play and about fun. Now listen, I'm not going to drop the academic fun bomb on you. I'm not going to get the fun out of the podcast. I just wanted you to know that I've been thinking a lot about this, and I think that I've come to some pretty interesting and potentially useful perspectives, maybe even some definitions that would help as we think about fun. And before I get through that, I really do want to put a big caveat up front when I talk about fun. I don't ever want to be the fun police. You know, as they say, I don't want to yuck your yum. If you say something's fun, I believe you. If somebody else says it's fun, I believe them. I'm interested in what ties all that fun together. So even though I think there is a common thread that ties all fun things together, I think there is something to this big bucket of stuff we call fun. Something that ties motorcycle racing to learning the tango, to making sushi, to throwing stones into the river. It's all fun. I think that what really we also have to remember is that people have taste. There's things that you like and there's things that you don't like. And I'm interested in what people do for fun. I'm interested why they do it for fun, why they think it's fun, whether I think it's fun or not. And so when we talk about this podcast, when we're trying to answer the fun question, really what we're looking for is the underlying ideas, the underlying stuff that makes it fun for people. And I hope even in that sense, as you listen to the interviews that make up this podcast, that we start to understand that even if someone's talking about something that they love deeply and they find very fun, even if it's not something that you find fun, I hope at least you can potentially appreciate a little bit better why that might be fun for someone. So, with that said, let's start talking about fun. And I have 3 probably major points that I'd like to make that I think could really help us as we start to think about what fun is. And certainly as we explore the concept of fun through these myriad of interviews that we will be doing, maybe we'll learn a little bit about fun. So what can we say about fun? Let's just say, what ties together the fun of going to a haunted house, to the fun of hosting a dinner party for friends, to the fun of traveling to Iceland and bathing in the Blue Lagoon in Reykjavik. I mean, they're all things that people might say were fun, but they seem like really different kinds of activities. So really, what can we say that brings those 4 things or those 3 things together? So the first big concept I want to get out for you to think about is the difference between play and fun. A lot of people talk about play. They say that play is this really beneficial thing, which it is. They say that there's a science of play, which there is. There's all these reasons to play, which there are. But what about the relationship between fun and play? Well, in practice, I use the words interchangeably. When I talk about fun, I talk about play. I talk about play, I talk about fun. And the reason for that is I think that what you do is you play, and you play in order to have fun. So this goes back to my video game roots. People play video games, and I would ask a simple question, why do they play video games? And the answer would be, well, they play to have fun. They might play to relax, and they might play to compete, and they might play to explore, and there are a lot of other kinds of pieces that go with it, but the common denominator is everyone plays video games to have fun. And so I think that notion of play as the verb and fun as the experience of that activity is really important. Now, again, not to get pedantic, and it's not something that we really have to get stuck on. I just want you to know that for me, part of the fun question is also the answer is, well, it's play. And so when I say go have fun, I'm saying go play. And play can be going to haunted houses, racing cars, or going out for sushi. Fun can also be building a model or solving a puzzle or kicking a field goal. There's all kinds of different ways people have fun. So the relationship between the action and the experience is less interesting to me than to really isolate and talk about what is this experience of fun. Now that's a good question, because some people say it's really difficult to define play, but I think what they really mean is they've never really tried to define fun. They've never tried to define the experience, because the ways people play seems to be as diverse as there are kinds of people, and it's probably true. So what is fun? How can we define fun? Well, I have an answer for you, and to get there, I need to share with you a little story about a scholar named Gregory Bateson and his interest in monkeys. Now, Gregory Bateson was a great scholar. He did a lot of work in the 60s and 70s, and one of his things that he was really interested in was communication. So he studied a lot of communication. Part of his background was as an anthropologist, and so he got interested in this idea of metacommunication. And metacommunication is just really communication about communication. And, for example, anyone who's ever been in a relationship knows metacommunication. It's where you say one thing and you mean something else. So, if your partner says, let's go get pizza, would you like pizza tonight? And you say, sure. Well, you've said 2 different things, right? Sure means yes, let's go get pizza. But the tone of sure means I probably would prefer something else. You also have that all the time. How do you like my shirt? Oh, it's a nice shirt. You're saying 2 different things at the same time. You're saying, maybe I don't like your shirt, but I'm saying that I do like your shirt. So metacommunication is just communication about communication. It's sort of this human ability to say 2 different things at the same time with the same set of words. And Gregory Bateson was just curious, because he's a curious guy, if animals had metacommunication. So, in order to do a little research, he went over to the zoo in San Francisco, and he found himself sitting in front of the monkey cage, and he's watching the monkeys, gambling in the, playing around in their little enclosure. They're chasing each other, they catch each other, and then they're pretending to fight and biting each other. Not really biting each other, it's just. And then Bateson stops, and he goes, "Oh my gosh, animals have metacommunication." See, what he was observing was that when the monkeys would catch each other and they would bite each other, what they were doing is they weren't really biting. They weren't biting hard enough to hurt or break the skin or cause any pain. They were biting in a way that says, hey, pretend I'm biting you. So pretend this bite means bite, but also understand that this isn't a real bite, so let's not actually get into it. Now, Bateson first was excited because he discovered that animals have metacommunication, but then he got really excited because he discovered in his mind that he had uncovered the underlying origin of fantasy and play, as he would say. He thought that this metacommunicative act, this bite that wasn't a bite, the bite that's not a bite, really explained what play was. That play was this weird place in behavior where you say two different things at the same time that are apparently in conflict or in contradiction. And inside of that space, then you have to kind of, play. You have to kind of decide, like, did you bite me too hard? Oh, you bit me, I'm going to get you. And in fact, this is just common sense when you think about it. Children play all the time, and they kind of live in this is not state. They put a little metal colander on their head and put on some long underwear and say they're a space person. They don't really think they're in outer space. They don't really think their bed is a spaceship. But, for that moment of play, long johns are a spacesuit, a colander is a space helmet, and the bed is a spaceship. It's a spaceship that's not a spaceship, a helmet that's not a helmet, a spacesuit that's not a spacesuit. So really what Bateson described as this is not, or this bite that's not a bite, I would just say more generally is this broader construction, this metacommunicative structure of the is not. Now I know it's probably a lot. You're listening to this, you're kind of wondering, where's he going with this? This sounds really heady. And of course it kind of is, but I want you to actually think that we have a pretty innate understanding of fun and play. We don't really have to think about it. It just kind of happens. I mean, fun, like things like love or surprise or joy, they're experienced feelings or embodiments of something that we know it when it happens. These words are just a way of describing it. And so I just like to boil down the sort of core of play, or the experience of play, fun, into this momentary experience of the is not. That's what I think that play is. It's an experience of the is not. Now, let me just give you some examples of this, because I think that there are lots of ways to think about play, but it's just easier to kind of take some examples and show you how the is not works. So, let's just start with one of my favorite things, because, I study the architecture of fun. Let's think about Disneyland. Disneyland's this really interesting place because, it's full of this is not construction. It's the home of a mouse that's not a mouse, who lives in a house that's not a house. There's a mountain that's not a mountain. There's a space mountain that's not a mountain. The river cruise, the Jungle Cruise, is a great ride, and it's a river that's not a river. I mean, it's specifically not a river, because if you think about it, if you've ever been on that ride, you get on the boat and you go in a circle. And I hate to tell you, rivers don't go in circles. That would be called a lake. But, we call it the river because it looks like a river. The River of America that goes around Tom Sawyer Island. Again, it's really a lake, but we think of it as a river. It's got all kinds of constructions of things that aren't what they are. The is not. And Disney's perfected this as a theme park. They perfected this whole idea of being able to put you into a place where you have the experience of the is not. When you look at the Matterhorn, your brain sees a mountain, but you simultaneously know it's not a mountain. And I think that's just this lovely example of that construction. But there's lots of other things. Let's think about puzzles. Think about your holiday puzzle that you dump out on the kitchen table and you spend hours upon hours of labor, sorting pieces, testing pieces, getting the whole thing together. And from the outside, it's really laborious work. It's really laborious sorting and matching work that, I would say be like slave labor in a third world country where they're putting together iPhones. But instead, we're doing it for fun because puzzles, almost by definition, is work that's not work. It's a puzzle that's not a puzzle. It's kind of consequential because you want to put it together, but it's inconsequential because when it's done, it was just done for the amusement of it. So puzzles are a great example of this. I mean, toys sit right at the center of this. Toys for kids are all about being like the thing that they're supposed to be, but not being the thing they're supposed to be. So if you think about it, if you've ever seen a little kid with a lawnmower like mom or dad has, or an oven like mom or dad has, they don't want a real full-size lawnmower with whirling blades. They want a little click, 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 click plastic lawnmower that's their size and they know is safe. They don't want a big oven that they would fit inside of, like a witch was going to cook them. They want a little easy bake oven with little pans and little cakes to put in there. So kids want an oven that's not an oven. They want a mower that's not a mower. They want a baby doll that's not a baby doll. Kids just love that construction because they live in that world of the whole world kind of is not what it is. The doorknobs to them that are this big and toilet seats that are this big. So toys are just a really wonderful translation of the is not. They are things that are what they're not, and they're not what they are. Costumes are another great example. I would always say that if you're a police officer and you put on your uniform and you go out on Halloween, that's probably not much a play. It might even be just sort of stressful dealing with all the chaos. But if you're me, who just decides I want to be dressed up as a police officer for the evening, I put on a uniform and I go out and I pretend to be a cop, right? I'm like, hey, don't you get into trouble. You're under arrest. Come with me. Now, if I impersonated a cop on Halloween, that's not play. But as long as I am playing at a cop, I am a cop who's not a cop. Again, I get to act as if I am what I'm not. It's the bite that's not a bite, the cop that's not a cop, the is that's is not. Same thing could be said for games. A game like Monopoly, if you ask what it's about bankrupting your friends and family. It's about basically taking all of their money and sending them to the poorhouse. That's what it is, but it's also not about that because it's money that's not money and property that's not property. It's monopoly that's not monopoly. And so, games over and over are like this. And in fact, the whole long conversation about violent video games has always been the people that say, hey, video games are modeling violent behaviors like murdering people. And the people that play the games say, well, no, it's not real. And it turns out the play is in both. It's the thrill of driving a car in Gran Turismo video game is driving a really expensive car carelessly really fast. But it's a car that's not a car. It's a track that's not a track, and so on and on. So games then also become little simulations of things that allow us to do what we're not doing or to not do what we are doing. And finally, I'd say, it continues on and on and on. I mean, another great example would be aquariums. I mean, aquariums, you got little fish, little sunken ship, fake plants. It's nature that's not nature. And finally, I'd point to magic, one of my favorite topics. Magic is the experience of the impossible. So when you watch somebody read your mind or make a coin appear, what you saw isn't what you saw. The magician didn't produce a coin from thin air. The magician didn't have some psychic ability to read your mind. What you're experiencing is the impossible that's possible. Once again, the is not. So that's just something to think about. I think the is not construction actually is the thing that ties anything that's fun together. And I've had people throw examples at me, and it usually gets to be very simple of just finding the thing that's not what it is and the thing that what it is it's not. That usually is what fun is. And so I would say the fun then is this wonderful experience of this ambiguity of the is not, and that's where fun comes in, and that's what the word means. And everything that we've ever designed or come up with or do that's fun really are structures that allow us to have that kind of experience, of that kind of fun. Now, this raises a big question then. It raises the question of well, then why is fun so compelling? I mean, it sounds confusing. You keep using the word ambiguity like that's good. I mean, why would I want to live in a state of uncertainty? And there's probably a lot of answers to that. There's some really good answers in books like Brian Sutton Smith's The Ambiguity of Play. He would say it's an evolutionary adaptation. It's what helps the organism keep from falling into stasis or keep repeating behaviors mindlessly. It keeps them open and learning. And there's a lot more to say there, but I would just say that if you focus on this idea of ambiguity, what ambiguity does, what the is not does, since it's both things, the thing is true and the thing is not true, it allows you, the person, the player who's experiencing the fun, to make up their own mind, to decide what they think this means. So let me give you an example. Let's go back to Disneyland. People who don't like Disneyland will invariably say that they think that it's fake. They think, I don't like Disney. It's all fake. It's a waste of money. Now, of course, people that like Disneyland, like myself, would say, I know it's fake. I mean, that's why I like it. I don't have some psychosis. I know that's a person in a costume. I know that roller coaster doesn't really go through a mountain. It's just pretend. It's the is not. And so that ambiguity then creates this opportunity for the Disney fan to make their own meaning. And I would just say it to you this way. What's Disney about? I mean, for some people, it's about nostalgia. For some people, it's about reclaiming childlike wonder. For others, it's about the hunt for new branded merch. For others, it's about showing off some identity. For some, it's to be a pirate for a few minutes or to be a Jedi in Star Wars land. For others, it's a pretty park and it's an interesting place to go. For others, it's a family event. Disney kind of doesn't care. I mean, for some people, Disney's a place to go try new food. For others, it's a place to ride thrill rides. Disney doesn't care because Disney is constantly creating an intentional ambiguity that allows people to show up and present as they are. That's why you have such interesting events as gay days at Disney, dapper days at Disney where people dress up in their finest clothes, goth days at Disney. There's the gangs of Disney. There's actually people that dress in Disney character gangs and they kind of look menacing, but they're really playful. And again, Disney just absorbs all of this. Disney sees people showing up with t-shirts with the whole family wearing the same t-shirt. It's a family thing. Disney then becomes a platform or a very structured playground for people to have fun. And that ability to make meaning is so important because it says that now I am giving you an experience where you get to learn, where you get to interpret, where you get to imagine, where you get to experiment, where you get to try, where you get to try on identities, you get to test, you get to consider. The importance of play is that it really is kind of at the heart of learning. The ambiguity of play, the ambiguity of fun, is incredibly important to our organism. It's a chance to stretch out and try something different. And I think that then becomes the really, really important way of thinking about what fun is for, not just what it is. So we got three big ideas. The first big idea is that play and fun are two sides of the same coin. Play is what you do, fun is how you feel about it. The second thing is that fun is based on this ambiguity of the is not. That's really when we play, when we design games, when we design theme parks, we're designing to get people into that state of fun. Let's think about a roller coaster. It's designed specifically to give you that is not of hurtling to your death. And that's a designed experience with structures and thematic elements and lots of techniques for getting you into that sense of heightened ambiguity. Like a haunted house, there's techniques and there's ways of going about putting you into a place where you're in a terrifying environment that's not terrifying. You're being chased by a chain-wielding maniac that's not a chain-wielding maniac. You're being hunted by vampires that aren't vampires. There are all these things that are kind of set pieces that help you get into that moment of ambiguousness that allows you to do meaning making. So play's the action, fun's the experience, fun's based on the ambiguity, the is not. And the third thing I just really want to leave you with is that this ambiguity makes space for you to make your own meaning. And that is really the heart of the human wonderful experience and why it feels so good and why we constantly chase it in so many different ways. So that's what fun is in my mind. This is what fun is, and this is why I'm so interested in this podcast and this whole idea of talking to people about how they do fun, how they think about fun, and how they can share their fun with others, and to explore it as broadly as possible. You know, from roller coasters to knitting, from haunted houses to deep sea scuba diving. I don't really want to put a limit on what fun is. I want to explore this fun. I want to find out how people found their fun. I want to find out how people enrich their fun, and I want them to help us all understand how we can also have more fun. So that's what the fun question is. The fun question is not just what is it, but how can we have more of it? So that's the purpose of this podcast. It's to explore all the ways people think about and make and have fun. Along the way, we will pick up some more theory. I promise that. My academic side couldn't let that down. And I want you to come away with a better sense of how to have a more playful life. I would just say this. Imagine you took an art class, and part of that art class might be art appreciation. Now, maybe you want to just learn to paint. You want to learn to paint, sunset or an ocean scene. But the teacher wants you to kind of understand how painting works. They want you to understand color and form and theory and brushstrokes and materials. They also want you to understand some of the history of art so you can kind of know where to look to kind of better understand your own taste in art. And I think ultimately then that's all going to be plugged in together to help form you as an artist, to help you clarify what skills you want to develop and what kind of expression that you want to make. And I think that that's what this podcast is. I think this podcast is similar in approach. It's about appreciation. It's about structures. It's about the how-tos. So that's about it. So where we will go, I don't know. This podcast is at play. We want to have fun. We want to try out different ideas. We want to try out different kinds of people. We want to explore that ambiguity and enrich our minds. I want to blow your mind with fun. So without further ado, enjoy the series and let me know what you think. Let me know how you like to have fun.